Once upon a time, in a remote valley surrounded by dense forests and towering mountains, there was a village almost completely cut off from the outside world. The people of the village lived in harmony with nature, working their fields, tending to their animals, and leading simple lives. The village thrived, and the elders spoke of a golden era when their ancestors had enjoyed great prosperity. However, as time passed, the hearts of the villagers began to change. They became less concerned about the well-being of others and more focused on their personal gain. The community spirit that once defined the village started to crumble. Selfishness took root, and with it came distrust and division. One day, a terrible drought struck the village. The river, which had once irrigated the fields, dried up, and the crops began to wither. Day by day, the earth cracked under the relentless sun. The elders, now frail and worried, gathered to discuss how they would survive the impending famine. "We must come together and share what little we have," said Elder Mara, the wisest of them all. "If we work as one and share our resources, we can make it through this hard time." But many villagers had already started hoarding their remaining food, unwilling to share with their neighbors. Some had hidden their grains, fearing that their own families might not survive if they gave anything away. "We have saved our food through hard work," said a man named Jarrell, known for his cunning. "Why should we share with those who didn't prepare? If we give too much, none of us will have enough." Others agreed, nodding in fear. The seeds of selfishness had already been sown too deep, and the unity that had once defined the village was nearly gone. Days passed, and the situation worsened. The animals grew weak, the wells dried up, and the children began to cry from hunger. Yet, those who had food refused to share, while those with little were forced to beg. The village was on the verge of collapse. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, a stranger appeared at the village gates. He was mysterious, wearing a long shimmering robe, with eyes that sparkled with ancient wisdom. He carried nothing but a simple wooden staff. The villagers were wary of the stranger. They whispered among themselves, questioning whether he was a traveler or something more magical. Some even feared he was a sorcerer, come to curse them in their time of suffering. The stranger spoke in a calm yet commanding voice. "I have traveled far and wide, and I can feel the pain of this village. But it is not just the drought that is causing your suffering. There is a deeper illness here." The villagers remained silent, unsure of what to say. The stranger continued, "I offer you a choice. I can help you find what you seek, but first, you must show me that you are willing to help each other." The stranger stood silently in the center of the square, watching as the villagers placed their meager offerings into a single pile. As they did, a strange thing began to happen. The pile of food seemed to grow larger before their eyes. What had been a pitiful offering now appeared to be enough to feed the entire village for weeks. Gasps of astonishment rippled through the crowd. "How is this possible?" they whispered. The stranger smiled. "When you come together in compassion, there is always more than you think. The true scarcity was not in your food but in your hearts." The villagers began to understand. They had allowed fear and selfishness to drive them apart, but by coming together, they had discovered that there was more than enough for everyone. As they shared the food that night, the stranger told them a story. From that day forward, the villagers vowed never to let selfishness divide them again. They learned that true wealth is not in what one can accumulate, but in the strength of the bonds they share with one another. And so, they lived in peace and abundance, knowing that compassion, not fear, was the key to their survival. In the end, the greatest gift the stranger had given them was not the food that night, but the wisdom to understand that by helping others, they had truly helped themselves. Moral: true abundance comes from sharing and compassion, not from hoarding or selfishness. Working together in times of need is the key to overcoming hardships.